Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be teaching how to make a modern crochet vest. With this one, we wanted to create a simple vest that could be worn over a t-shirt or stylish enough to be worn on its own. It features the lovely Trinity stitch providing texture, a more casual fit, and it's a fairly quick workup, so if you're looking for a quick weekend project, this one goes out to you. Speaking of, this channel was made for you, and if you're into trendy crochet, you've come to the right place. We have hundreds of trendy, modern crochet patterns with new patterns weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 300 grams of yarn, and that's 450 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us what place you'd like to visit in Africa. I enjoy history, so I'd like to see all the places I've read about in Egypt. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and Trinity stitch. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we'll explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an odd number chain that reaches from about 1 inch underneath our underarm down to where we want the bottom of this top to be. I'd like for mine to stop at my waist, so I'm going to make a chain 27. And that's 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1, and we're going to get started with our Trinity stitch. So that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a single crochet. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now for our Trinity stitch, we want to make sure that we're working with a medium to loose grip, otherwise the following rows can be a little too tight to work into. And how we're always going to do our first Trinity stitch, it's always going to start with a single crochet, then we're going to need to pull up 4 loops on our hook. So starting with that first stitch that our single crochet is in, we're going to insert our hook into that same chain and pull through for 2 loops on our hook. We're now going to pull up a loop into each of the following 2 stitches as well. So insert your hook, pull through for 3, and then into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4. Now that we have those 4 loops, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops, and then finish off our Trinity stitch with a chain 1, and that is our first Trinity stitch set. Now let's do our following Trinity stitch. Our second Trinity stitch and onward is going to be done a little bit differently since we don't have that first single crochet to work into. So we still need to pull up 4 loops, but what we're going to do is start by inserting our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into. So this is that stitch for me. I'm going to start by inserting my hook in through that chain, pull through, and then pull up a loop into the following 2 chains as well. So into that next chain, insert your hook, pull through, and then into that next chain, insert your hook, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then do a chain 1. That is our second Trinity stitch, and that's going to be how we do all of our Trinity stitches until we reach the end of the row, leaving the last two chains. So let's do this again. We're all going to start by inserting our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into. We're going to insert, pull through, into that following chain, pull through, and then into the chain right after that, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4. Let's do this just one more time, a little bit quicker. So into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, into that following chain, pull through, and then into the chain right after that, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then chain 1 to finish off this Trinity stitch. We're going to continue to do our Trinity stitch until we have 2 chains left. We're nearly finished with our row 1. We should all have 1, 2 chains left. Let's do our last Trinity stitch together. So right after the last one, we should have all done a chain 1. We're going to start it off the same way. So inserting our hook into that same stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, insert, pull through, into that following chain, which should be our second to last, pull through, and then into that last, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. Now right after we pull through all 4 of those loops, we're going to close off this row with a single crochet. So we are not going to be finishing the last one with a chain 1. We're going to insert our hook into that same stitch that our last Trinity stitch was worked into. So this edge chain right here with 1 single crochet. And since we're along the edge of our row 1 or an odd number row, we're going to have to do an increase as well. So into that same chain that our single crochet is in, we're also going to be doing a half double and double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into that same last chain, pull through all 3 with a half double crochet and then a double crochet. So yarn over, in through that same last chain, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that is our increase. Now for our row 2 or any even number row, we will not be doing any increases or decreases. So we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and do our Trinity stitch all the way down. So let's just do the first few. As a refresher, our first Trinity stitch is always going to start with a single crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. Now I'll need to pull up 4 loops, so we're going to insert our hook into that same stitch that our single crochet is in, into the stitch right after that, and then into the stitch right after that as well, for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and then chain 1. Now let's do the next one. This Trinity stitch is going to start off by inserting our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, into that following stitch, pull through, and then into the stitch right after that, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then chain 1. Let's do just one more together. Into that same last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, insert, pull through, into that following stitch, pull through, and then into the stitch right after that, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to finish off this Trinity stitch, and continue this until we have 2 stitches left. So we're nearly finished with our row 2. We should all have 1, 2 stitches left. So now let's do our last Trinity stitch. It's going to start off the same way as all of our other ones. So inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, insert, pull through, into that following stitch, which should be our second to last, pull through, and then into that last, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, and since this is the last one, we're going to close off this row with a single crochet. We are not going to be doing any increases at the end of any of our even number rows because this is going to be the bottom. So from here, we're going to get started with our following row. So chain 1, flip our work, and it's going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows. So let's just do our Trinity stitch, making our way all the way down so we can increase together once more. As a super quick refresher, single crochet into the last stitch from our previous row, and then do our first Trinity stitch, and then continue doing our Trinity stitch until we have 2 stitches left. Our row 3 is now nearly finished, so let's do our last Trinity stitch plus increase together. Starting it off the same way as all of our other Trinity stitches, we're going to insert our hook into that last stitch from our previous Trinity stitch, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, and then into that last, pull through for a total of 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now since this is our last Trinity stitch, we're going to single crochet into that last stitch from our previous row. And since we're at the end of an odd number row, we're also going to need to do an increase. So after that single crochet, we're also going to do a half double, and then also double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get an underarm portion that reaches from mid-underarm over to the front of our body, or about mid-collarbone. We do want to make sure that we end along the top or right after an odd number row. I'll meet you guys back when we have this all finished up. My underarm is now finished. I have a total of 7 rows. My width is just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to start working on our shoulder. So we're all going to start by making an odd number chain that reaches all the way up to the top of our shoulder. I've already measured mine out. I need a total of 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters. So I made a chain of 15. Now once we have our chain, we're going to do our Trinity stitch all the way down with no increases and no decreases. So just as a refresher, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a single, and then we're going to do our first Trinity stitch, which really quickly is inserting our hook into that same chain that our single crochets into that following chain, and then into the chain after that. We're going to pull through all 4 and do a chain 1. And we're going to continue this, making our way all the way down. At the end of the row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then repeat our Trinity stitches, like I said, with no increases and no decreases. So each of our rows for the shoulder portions should have the same amount of Trinity stitch sets. And we're going to continue to do this shoulder portion until we get a shoulder portion that can reach over to the base of our neck. And then I'll meet you back along the bottom or right after an even number row to get started on the neckline. I am back and my shoulder is all finished. I have a total of 16 rows and my width is just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. And now we're going to start working on our neckline. So we're going to want to put this up to ourselves and insert our stitch marker into any odd stitch from the top, right where the base of our neck is. I've inserted my stitch marker into the 7th stitch from the top, and that's just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. From here, since we all should have ended along the bottom, we're going to do our Trinity stitch, making our way all the way up, making sure that our last Trinity stitch, aka our last single crochet, is worked into that stitch marker stitch. So we've made our way all the way up to our stitch marker stitch. Now from here, we're just going to work across our chest over to the other side of the base of our neck with our Trinity stitch row. So all we're going to do from here is chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Trinity stitches all the way down. This neckline portion also isn't going to have any increases or decreases, so we should have the same amount of sets as this first row that we did, working our way across our chest. I'll meet you back along the top or right after an odd number row so we can work on the shoulder from there. My neckline is finished. I have a total of 33 rows and my width is now 12 inches or 30 centimeters. And now what we're going to do from here is our shoulder. So what we're going to do, since we all should have ended along the top, we're going to make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped along this side, -1. Because remember, we insert our stitch marker into an odd number, but our last Trinity stitch was worked into that stitch marker stitch. So if you guys have my numbers, I skipped a total of 7 stitches. Now the amount of stitches that I have left is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So since I have 6 available stitches right here, I made a chain 6. After our chain, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Trinity stitch all the way down. So let's just do the first one as a refresher. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a single crochet, and then we're going to do our Trinity stitch all the way down. Now this shoulder portion is going to be exactly the same as the first shoulder portion. So we will not be having any increases or decreases, and we will be repeating this for the same amount of rows as the first shoulder portion that we have. And as a really quick tip, just to make sure that we're all on the right track, we should have the same amount of sets as our first shoulder portion. I'll meet you back when we have this all finished up. I am back with my second shoulder portion. I now have a total of 42 rows and my width is just about 14.5 inches or 37 centimeters now. And now we're going to finish off our front panel with our underarm. So first things first, we're all going to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made when we started off our shoulder. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain of 15. So along this side, I've inserted my stitch marker into the 15th stitch. Since we should all be along the bottom, we're going to do our Trinity stitch, making our way all the way up until we are 3 stitches before our stitch marker. So I've made my way all the way up with my Trinity stitches, and we should all have 1, 2, 3 stitches left, and now we're going to do a decrease of 2 single crochets. So we all want to make sure that that last Trinity stitch that we did does not end with a chain 1. So just in case if we did, all we're going to do is take apart that chain, none of those other loops, and then now we're going to skip that following stitch, which is our third to last stitch, and then into that second to last, insert your hook, pull through, and then into that last, pull through. We should have 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and that is how we're going to end our decrease row. From here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Trinity stitch all the way down since we only did an increase into every other row for the first underarm portion that we did and we needed to match. Do the following Trinity stitch row with no increases and no decreases. The following row is also going to be a Trinity stitch, so chain 1, flip your work, and then work your way all the way back until we have 2 stitches left. We are back and I have 1, 2, 3 underarm rows and I'm nearly finished with that third one. We all should have met back when we had 1, 2 stitches left, and then right after that last Trinity stitch, we did not do a chain 1. What we're going to do from here is another decrease of 2 single crochets. So into that following stitch, we're going to insert pull through. Into the stitch right after that, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And then that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as the first underarm portion that we did. When we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. So the entirety of my front panel is all finished. I now have a total of 49 rows, and my width is just about 18 inches or 46 centimeters. Right after my last row, I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now from here, we're going to get started on the back panel. The back panel is going to be done pretty much the same way as the front panel, but we aren't going to have our neckline. So when it comes to doing the shoulder, we're just going to do our Trinity stitch all the way across. I actually already have mine finished up, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So this is my back panel. We're all going to start by making the same chain that we made when we got started with the front panel's underarm. We're going to do the same amount of rows for our increases when it comes to doing our underarm. Then we're going to make the same chain that led all the way up to our shoulder. Like I said, from there, we're going to do our Trinity stitches with no increases and no decreases, working our way all the way across our back. And we're going to continue to do that for the same amount of rows that we have from our first shoulder row all the way to our last shoulder row, because we like for our front and back panels to be roughly the same size. Then right after that last row, we're going to do the same underarm that we did as the front panel. And when we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Once we have both our front and back panel finished up, we're going to get started on our shoulder seam. So we're all going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel along the top, and then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook. Then we're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now using a medium to loose grip, we're going to single crochet across the top of our front and back panel. So we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row that we have. So let's do the first one. This is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook in through there. Next, I'm going to find my top loop within the back panel, find that first row, and insert my hook in through that top loop. And if you're like me, you should have a tail end, so go ahead and place that over your hook so that we can weave it in as we go. And then we're going to single crochet per usual. And that's it. Let's do the next one. Now let's all start by finding our following side row. This is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook in through that top loop. And then I'm going to find that following row within my back panel. This is my side row right here. Insert my hook in through that top loop. And then gently single crochet through everything, and then that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into within the front panel. Then do a chain up 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So now that our shoulders are seamed, let's all seam our sides. So making sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam that we have for the shoulder is along the outside, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We are then going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. So doing our side seam, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch into the front panel, into that next stitch into the back panel, and then single crochet it together. So it's going to be pretty much the same way that we did the shoulders, but just a little bit easier because we have actual stitches to work into. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, into that next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and single crochet, and then that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back right after we do the same thing here on the other side. So now that everything is all seamed up, we're going to get started on the bottom band. So let's now make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the seams that we have are now along the inside, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom. We are next going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to use a medium to loose grip, doing a single crochet row all the way around. So we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook. I'm then going to place my tail end over my hook because I don't want to weave it in later, and then I'm going to single crochet once. Let's do this again. This is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop, insert with a single crochet, and just to do one more, this is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop and single crochet, and then that's it. We're going to continue on with the single crochet row, making our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. And a really quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this piece can stretch. So once when you slip stitch into that chain space, make sure that you're trying this piece on. If it's a little too tight, redo some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's a little too loose, redo some stitches with a tighter grip. So now that our single crochet row is finished up, we're going to work on the length of our bottom band. So from where we're at, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be a little bit smaller, so about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 5. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1, and then we're going to do a slip stitch row. So inserting your hook into that second chain from our hook, insert, we're going to yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. Let's do that again. In through that next chain, insert your hook, gently pull through everything, and again, insert your hook, gently pull through everything, and continue doing our slip stitches until we reach the base. Now that we put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're now going to connect it into the base. So let's find that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, we just wanted to connect it into the base. And we do need to work our way up to the following row as well, so slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, and flip our work. And now from here, we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert in through that back loop, and then gently yarn over and pull through everything, and then that's it. We're going to continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch as well, and I'll meet you back at the base. And just as a really quick tip, we want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row could be a little too tight to work into. And now that we're back at the base, we're going to need to connect it into the base again. So find that next stitch into the base with a slip stitch. Then we're going to find that next stitch into the base to work our way up to the next row, slip stitch into there as well, flip our work, and then repeat. We're going to continue to do our back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam our bottom band together. So I've made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows. I don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it all together with an outside loop slip stitch seam. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. And then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And now let's do our first stitch. We're going to start by inserting our hook into that first stitch into the front panel, and we're going to insert only into that front loop. We're next going to insert our hook into that next available stitch into the back panel and insert into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert your hook into that front loop. That next stitch into the back panel, insert into the back loop, and then pull through everything. And we're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So now that our bottom band is all seamed up, we're now going to work on our mock neck. So first things first, making sure that our work is still flipped right side out and right side up, we're going to be inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have on the back panel's neckline. We're then going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to work our way around our neckline with a single crochet row. So we're going to want to make sure that we're using a medium to loose grip for this, and we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row, and then once we reach the front panel, 1 single crochet into every stitch, and continue making our way all the way around. So let's just do the first few side rows together. This is my first side row that I have right here. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop, and since I have a tail end, I will be placing that over my hook, and I'm going to single crochet. Let's do that again. Into my following side row, I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop with 1 single crochet. And we're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. So just 1 single crochet into every side row, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. And another quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this neckline can stretch. So try this on once when we have slip stitched into that chain space. If it's too tight, redo some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, redo some stitches with a tighter grip. So I've just made my way all the way around with my single crochet row for my neckline, and now we're going to start working on our mock neck. So we're all going to start by making a chain the length that we'd like for our mock neck to be. I want mine to be just about 1.5 inches or 3 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 8. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do a slip stitch row back down. So this is basically going to be the same as the bottom band. We're going to start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. And from here, we're going to be putting 1 slip stitch into every chain. And now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we need to connect it into the base. So just like how we did our bottom band, find that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch to connect our row 1. Now that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect our row 1. And then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, that also doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. And now from here, we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. We're going to continue this until we reach the end of the row. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and then continue putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did and the same way that we did for the bottom band. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 slip stitch rows, making our way all the way around. And when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back to seam it together. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows, and now we're ready to do our outside loop slip stitch seam. So the same seam that we did for the bottom band. We're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Now let's do the first one since we already know how to do this seam. We're going to insert our hook into that first stitch into the front panel, into that front loop, into that first stitch into the back panel, into that back loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and when we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that our mock neck is all seamed up, we're just going to single crochet along our armholes to clean it up. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up, and we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And from here, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row, 1 single crochet into every stitch, and we're going to make our way all the way up and over. So let's all start by finding our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm going to insert into that top loop, insert my hook, and since I have some tail ends, I'm going to place that over my hook, and then single crochet. Let's do this again. This is my following side row. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop, and single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up and over. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain up 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. And now that our single crochet rows are finished up, we are all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!